Thank you for watching this video. To best support the channel, please take a moment and click the subscribe button. Also, the links to purchase this fly and the materials to tie the fly are in the description. In today's video, we are tying an updated version of the Mini Marabou Clouser Minnow. One of the biggest differences is that we're moving it to a barbless hook. In the vise, we have a Moonlit TOGATTA ML801 hook in size 8. And we're using some nano silk in 12/0 to use as our tying thread today. We just attached a pair of bead chain eyes, and we tied them into place, and they're locked in nice and tight. And from here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna tie in a single strand of pearl flashabou and tie that in back to the beginning of the curve of the hook. And try and keep your thread as smooth and uniform as you can right here. It allows the flashabou to wrap more smoothly. And we're going to end with our thread in front of the bead chain eyes, and then we're just going to do nice touching wraps all the way up the shank of this fly up until we get right behind the bead chain eyes, and then we'll jump underneath the bead chain eyes and get over to the front side of those to tie off our flashabou. Now that we've tied off our flashabou, we can go ahead and trim it out. And if you'd like to add some additional durability to the fly, go ahead and put some UV resin on that flash. But I found that it doesn't matter nearly as much because the marabou helps protect it pretty regularly. Now we'll go ahead and measure out a piece of marabou. And I measured it out so it's 1 hook length in length beyond the curve of the hook. And then I'll tie that in with 3 tight wraps right in front of the eyes. And then I'll move behind the hook, behind the bead chain eyes and do 3 more wraps, and I'll make sure that I'm pulling the marabou up a little bit so it helps it stay all on the top half of the hook, so above the shank itself. Then I'll go do a couple of wraps in front of the bead chain again. Then I'll take my tying scissors and I'll do little snips to try and get this out as cleanly as I can. And the reason for the little snips is if you do a big snip, it can pull some of the marabou loose and cause it to go crazy on the back half of the hook. So now just wrap your thread around, clean up that head section just a little bit. Now that that's cleaned up a little bit, I'm going to go through and do a couple tight wraps behind the bead chain eye and then back in front of it so that we can have everything locked into place nice and tight. And then I'll invert the hook so we can go ahead and start tying in our crystal flash. This is one of the new parts of the updated version as well. So I'm tying in 2 strands of crystal flash and tying them in loosely so that I can reposition them before I lock it into place and trim them out. So I'm going to position them so they're on the side closest to me, and then I'll take my scissors and trim those out, leaving just a small tag end that I can tie in a little tighter. And then I'll position the 2 strands of flash on the other side of the hook so that I have 2 strands on each side of the hook, one towards me and one on the far side from me. Trim those out, make sure they're positioned well, and lock them into place. From here, we will grab our second marabou feather. This is going to be a sculpin olive color. And we're going to tie that in on the top of the fly and make it so it goes just beyond the tips of the white marabou. I'm going to do just a nice loose wrap, and then another loose wrap. Let the thread weight tighten things up just a little bit, but that way I can get things adjusted and centered on the top of the fly right now. And then I'm going to pull tight and go back in and trim out the same way I did with the white marabou. Just trim it out on a nice clean tie-in point and make it so that the butt ends are shorter than where the eye of the hook is, so you don't get marabou feather fibers trapped in the eye of the hook. So now we'll go through and use our thread to clean up the wraps on this section, make sure all the butts are covered up. And the nice thing about this white nano silk is that unless you put a very heavy layer of it, it's going to go slightly translucent when you put on the UV resin, so you get a little bit of that brown coming through automatically. So now I'm going to go through and do a quick whip finish and trim out my thread so that I can start putting the UV resin on the head of this fly and finish it up. I will be using some Raid Zap Thin, and we'll put that over all the exposed thread wraps on the head of the fly, and then over just the little section of marabou between the bead chain eyes to help give that just a little bit of added durability right there. And I'll use the point of the resin container to smooth things out and make sure we get rid of any little bubbles that are there. And then once everything is covered in resin, I will loosen the rotary feature on my vise so that it spins a little bit more freely. And then I'll go through, spin it around, help things smooth out, grab our UV light, and use that to cure the resin. And you now have a completed Mini Marabou Clouser Minnow. Please tie these up. They're great for finessing bass and large bluegill, and have fun tying them in a whole bunch of different colors. In the description below, you'll get a link to the shop where you can buy the materials or buy the fly. And if you haven't had a chance yet, please take a moment to subscribe. Thank you.